Another day, another Super Duty. This time we've got a 2026 Platinum in the new Argon Blue color. Basically just built a Raptor Super Duty. So this is the new color for 2026. I would say if you're familiar with Ford colors, I would say it's right in the middle of Atlas Blue and Velocity Blue, which Velocity Blue is hands down my favorite Ford color. I had a 21 Super Duty in that color. I've always been a big fan of it. So this one kind of does something for me, so I'm really excited to see this one come together. All right, so on this one, kind of game plan, nothing too crazy, and I say that lightly because we're not doing a ton of over-the-top stuff, but what we are doing is very, very high quality. So I'm excited on this one. We're doing a Icon suspension system, and the reason I say suspension system instead of lift kit, we're achieving the same thing. We are going to lift the truck, but this suspension system we've got from Icon is unreal. I mean, this thing's going to be super cool. So basically what it entails is a full coilover conversion in the front end, electronic 2.5s in the back end. So this thing has a computer module that we tie all the shocks to, and it basically is controlled from a phone app. So the best way I can describe it is it's going to be able to be controlled like a Raptor. So you're going to be able to make adjustments on the fly to stiffen or soften or, you know, whatever you need for whatever application you're driving in. Other than that, we're just doing the suspension system, wheels, tires, and tint the windows. So, I mean, it's gonna be a pretty clean and simple, but very, very functional build. The suspension system that we went with from Icon is adjustable. So they say it's a 4.5 to 5.5 inch, I believe. And so you can set the coilover height to, you know, wherever it needs to be to level it out. So basically what we'll do is we'll set the rear ride height with the block and stuff. And then, you know, we may need to adjust the coilover in the front up or down, depending on, you know, how level we want to get it. 37-inch tires, 22-inch wheels. So that's my favorite combo on these is just, you know, 4-inch suspension, 22s, 37s. It just looks perfect. So, yeah, I just put 24s on my truck, and it's really cool, but really dumb. So anyway, yeah, that's about it. It's a pretty hefty upgrade. So we're just excited to get it on there and see if it's, you know, see if we can say whether it's worth the money or not.
A few moments later.
All right, so the truck is in, we're getting ready to tear down, got the wheels and tires off of it, loaded up, ready to go, but I just wanted to run through and kind of show you the contents of the kit. This thing is pretty nuts. So right here, this box, so this is gonna be our brain. So everything plugs into here, and then this is what your phone connects to be able to do all the adjustments on everything. And these are the rear shocks. They're huge. I mean, like, the shock shaft on this thing is beefy. Like, these are huge. So if I roll it over like this, so our plug goes in right here. So that's basically the control. Very, very impressive rear shock. And then these are the front coilovers. So same thing. We've got an electrical connection right there that it's gonna plug into. So basically what's gonna happen is these coilovers are gonna take place of, so basically it's a 2-in-1. So normally you have your coil spring here and you have your shock here, but we're gonna basically combine the two into a coilover. So it's a coil spring and a shock all in one. So it's gonna kind of clean all this up. But yeah, this thing's got, I mean, a lot of crazy good parts, like everything's all welded, fabricated, the block. And then one thing to mention on this, instead of a radius arm, like a traditional radius arm setup, it's a 4-link. And so you basically bolt this big bracket in there, and instead of having one solid radius arm, it converts it to 2 bars that'll go from that bracket to the axle. And what that does is basically make it so that you have more up travel. So, I mean, this kit's literally designed for a joke. Like, this is meant to go crazy fast across the desert. So what it does is it just gives you more suspension travel, so that when you completely drop your suspension, it has more travel, you know, to absorb the impact when you land again. So that'll be cool. So basically what I'm talking about, I'll show you. So see right here, this is your factory radius arm. So it's just a solid piece that comes back and mounts to the frame right here, to this bolt. So what we're gonna do is that bracket goes in right here and goes underneath, and then it's gonna have one bar that comes off the top here that goes to that top hole, and then it's gonna have a separate bar that comes off the bottom and goes to that bottom bar. So basically, instead of one solid piece, we're making it two separate pieces to increase the suspension travel. So we're gonna keep cranking on this with the wheels and tires loaded up. So I'm gonna run over to the other shop, get the sensors pulled out of the stock stuff, get these all mounted and balanced, ready to go, and then we'll come back and check on Derek and see where he's at. This coilover conversion, so kind of how it works is you have to notch out that coil bucket where your coil spring sits, and then you have to drill holes, and that's what holds this in. Is there's bolts that come in from the top. That is quite the process. So we got that all done. Everything came together nice, got the arms on. So the only thing we have left to button up in the front end is the sway bar drop brackets, the track bar bracket, and steering stabilizer. So front end's almost done, and then we'll move to the rear end. Icon does also include these new brake lines that are extended, so you've got a lot more travel there, a lot more length in your brake lines. So, I mean, this kit is seriously, I think, designed to like go hit a giant jump. Like, this thing is sweet. I mean, you got bump stop extensions, so you're not gonna bottom anything out when you hit. Anyway, we're gonna keep working on front end, get that all dialed in, rear end, and then we'll have it on the ground and ready for alignment. Okay, so the suspension's all on and done. We just got it back from alignment. So I'm gonna show you guys kind of how the whole system works. We talked about the brain of it all that's under the hood. So we'll show you what that looks like. So it's basically just this control module right here. While we were going through the mounting process of this, we learned a few things about it that are kind of cool. So this actually is like a very specific mount to this truck, and the reason being is because it actually measures the pitch and yaw of the truck. I don't know what yaw means, but yaw. I'm just kidding. It's basically what it means is it's, you know, reading how the truck is sitting. So like in an off-road setting, a lot of the, you know, Broncos and Raptors and stuff like that, you know, an off-road portion of the vehicle itself to measure that stuff. So you can do it all through Icon's app. And so, you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, you're on a super off-center section, you know exactly where you're at and kind of what your limits are. So right here we have basically 4 plugs that go to our 4 corners. So 2 go to the front, 2 go to the rear, and it's very specific. So you got channel 1, 2, 3, 4, and those are labeled on the shocks themselves so that you obviously you want to make sure you have everything to the right shock. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it was pretty straightforward, simple. So those run back to the 2 rear shocks and then down to the 2 front shocks. You grab power, ground, ignition source. Other than that, it's just kind of set up on the phone. So we'll show you what that looks like. Next step, we're gonna go do test drive and stuff on it, just make sure everything's tight, steers good, feels good before we return it to the customer. So we're gonna kind of take you on that test drive, and we're gonna, you know, play with the suspension as we go, just kind of learn what it's all about. So with this setup, we basically just built a Raptor Super Duty, where these shocks are electronically controlled. If you're familiar with the Raptor platform, their main thing, it's built by Fox, but it's called Live Valve. And so what that means is that you have adjustability on the fly. So I mean, for example, our F-150 Raptor is sitting right behind this, and it has all kinds of different suspension settings. So as you're going down the road, you can fine tune your drivability. You know, if you're Because I mean, on that one, it's on 22s right now. Normally we run a 17-inch setup, which has a lot more sidewall in the tire, so you're a little bit softer. So sometimes when we're on the 17-inch setup going down the freeway, the Raptors have a tendency to feel a little bit soft, and so you actually can stiffen up that suspension to account for that. Vice versa on the 22s, the ride is a little more rough, and so you can soften up a little bit. So it just gives you a really cool element of adjustability to your vehicle, and makes it so that you can kind of fine tune your ride quality, you know, as well as off-road performance. Coilover conversion, so you ditch the coil spring shock, and then this has a 4-link setup instead of just a traditional radius arm, which is really cool. The 4-link just allows for more up travel. And then in the rear, there's a couple different options for the rear setup on these. You can actually do a full, you know, progressive rate leaf spring pack. This customer is going to use this truck to tow quite a bit, and so we just opted for the forged block with, you know, factory leaf springs and stuff. That way we are probably going to have to run an airbag setup on this of some sort, so that, you know, kind of makes it a little easier and more options as far as the airbag stuff goes on this. So since we actually have a Raptor sitting right behind this, let's go through and actually show you kind of some of the similarities between the two. Obviously the front end is a little bit different of a setup on this, but you've got a electronically controlled shock as well. And then in the rear on the Raptor, you've got 4-link with an electronic shock. Very, very similar components, designs, you know, so that's, I mean, that's kind of why I feel like we've pretty well made a Raptor Super Duty. Okay, so we've been driving around for a minute, just kind of trying to feel this all out and how it all works. So there's 3 different settings right here, and I think in these settings, you know, you can custom tune, you know, I mean, it has presets, but if you're feeling like it needs something different, then you can go. So for off-road, it just has us at 4 in both places. If you go to tow haul, it goes 3 in the front, 7 in the rear, which I think is just going to stiffen up your rear a little bit to, you know, account for having extra weight back there. And then normal goes to 2. So we've been kind of trying to hit, you know, a section of railroad tracks or whatever. That's about as close as I'm going to get to an off-road scenario in a customer vehicle. So yeah, we're just kind of messing with it, trying to see if we can feel the differences. I definitely do. I mean, this thing rides really good. It drives really nice. So the other thing that's kind of cool about this, and I don't know how in-depth I'm going to get with this because it's not, you know, necessarily anything that I am going to use, but, you know, and it would probably just take some kind of learning and reading and stuff of what stuff is, but G-Boost, you know, I don't really know what...
So that's going to be your front to rear.
Okay. So then, you know, corner boost. And so I think this is where, you know, our pitch and yaw comes into place. And then there's this, which is iconic overview is what it looks like. So you can do a recording of, you know, your drive. So say you're, you know, you jump off road and want to kind of see how everything's doing. You can start recording, and then it's gonna, you know, basically log this whole drive, and it's gonna give you, you know, reporting of kind of what everything's doing, and which is pretty sweet, honestly. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know that this is gonna be really beneficial to us in any on-road scenario, so I mean, we're probably not gonna mess with any of that, but I think this is where most of the magic's going to happen, is just being able to, you know, kind of mess with your different drive modes. I think the tow haul setting is going to be kind of cool, you know, stiffen up the rear a little bit off-road, but I think most of the time you're going to be just cruising around in normal and, you know, kind of a more plush ride and a little bit softer. So I'm going to leave it, let's leave it in normal, and maybe we can just click that. I'm going to try and hit it at like, let's say 20. Yeah. 23.
Well, that's way better than...
Yeah, that's...
I mean, you have the basis to talk about daily and Super Duty.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty pretty intriguing for me. My daily driver is a Super Duty, basically the identical truck. Mine's on a BDS system, which I really like. I think they, BDS for the money, I feel like rides really nice and drives, but this definitely I can feel has a lot more potential for, higher performance. I mean, we hit that transfer and it just soaked it up, and that was in normal setting, which is going to be one of your softest. So, I mean, I bet if we hit it at that, we're going to circle back around and hit it at that same speed in the off-road setting and see how it feels. I don't think I'm going to hit it in tow haul because I think the rear is going to be stiff enough that I think it's going to take us for a hell of a ride if we do that, but we'll do off-road and see what we think. Okay. So we're going to hit that same section again. I got to kind of try and time it right so that we can go through it at speed. If I go right now, I think we'll time it right. Maybe. Come on. Turn green. Turn green. Ah, dang it. I'm going to just kind of... I think I can probably get to 20.
It's literally snowing in this part of town, but nowhere else.
Okay, I'm going to try and get to 20 real quick. That's pretty freaking good, dude. It definitely doesn't feel like you're... I don't know, like if I'm driving my Super Duty and I go to hit something like that, I mean, I'm definitely kind of like slowing down as much as I can and bracing. And maybe it's just because I know what this is capable of, but I don't feel like I have to do that. I feel like it does hit it, I'm not going to say it's as good as an F-150 Raptor, but it's pretty impressive for a 1-ton truck. And guys, obviously we know that this is not a Raptor. Like, I think this is about as close as you can get to a Raptor suspension in a Super Duty platform. So, it is very cool. But Ford, if you see this, we want a Super Duty Raptor. That'd be really cool. Take the F-250 and do a 4-link rear end with coil springs. Okay, listen close. I'll tell you how to do this. F-250, 4-link rear end with coil springs. That way you can fine-tune some stuff. Go 4-link front end with a coil over. Be freaking sick. So cool. Now I know what you guys are going to say. What's the point of having a Super Duty? You can't tow anything with it. I'm not very practical.
No.
You have 2 Super Duties. Okay, buy a Raptor Super Duty for fun stuff, and then have an F-350 for towing purposes.
Yeah.
That's the practical thing to do. It's 2 diesels.
Double the cells.
Correct. Okay, guys, that wraps it up. I'm going to make this short and sweet because it's cold outside, but we're going to just kind of do the run through and go through it again, kind of exactly what we did. So this is the 4.5-inch Icon Stage 8 system coilover conversion. So just to run through a couple things in the front end: coilover conversion, ditched coil spring, secondary shock, gone. Extended brake lines for extra up travel, 4-link conversion in the front. This one has adjustable track bar, all that good stuff. We did 22 by 10 arena battles. This is kind of a newer company we're working with, but I was really excited that he did this wheel because I really wanted to see it in person, and it didn't disappoint. It looks really good. Satin black finish, and then we wrapped it in a 37-1250 22 Falken RT. That's a pretty solid looking tire. A little noisy, but obviously that's to be expected with a rugged terrain tire like that. But it looks killer. It looks right on the wheel. The 22-37, that's kind of the perfect combo. We did rock blocks, mud flaps, which I actually really like how those mount and fit. I'm not a huge mud flap guy, but if I had to put a set on, I think that kind of takes the cake for me. It looks like they fit really tight, and I mean the mounting's good. Rock blocks is always, I mean, they take a little more time, but it's because they really think through their mounting process. I mean, like, those suckers are solid. Like, I mean, I could probably grab a hold of that, and with every strength in my body, I don't think I could rip that thing off. I mean, they're very, very well mounted. Tinted the front 2 windows, and then coming around to the back, just kind of more of the same stuff. So we got a 2.5 shock in the rear, electronically controlled, lift block. You know, nothing too crazy there. Another set of rock blocks in the rear. Bed cover. I mean, overall, this one was pretty quick and simple, but, you know, very, very, very cool experience doing this, you know, more of a suspension system rather than just like a typical lift kit. And I actually am pretty impressed with it. Just on our test drive and stuff, like bombing some of the transitions and railroad tracks and stuff like that, like it really does soak everything up pretty nice. I think this is going to be a pretty killer setup. So one thing I do want to mention, we did have a couple of, I don't want to say issues, but questions with the install of these kits. There's kind of a lot of, you know, Super Duties are pretty similar in components from, I mean, even going clear back to 2005. You know, a lot of these parts are still the same. And so there were a couple things that were different, you know, with this kit versus the instructions. And so, you know, we had to make a couple of phone calls to Icon and just clear up some things, and you know, had to have some assistance with the brain of it all, just, you know, mounting and all that kind of stuff. And they were super, super helpful. They really do. I mean, and a lot of the, well, not a lot. I mean, all of this stuff is insanely high quality. That's one thing I will give Icon. I mean, everything's just very, very well built. You know, when you have everything laid out on the table, I mean, you can just look at it and tell that, you know, these are high quality components, and, you know, that you're not going to have any issues with them. So, I mean, if you're looking for something that's, you know, I mean, it's not the cheapest, I will say that. It's definitely, you get what you pay for. But I mean, if you're looking to keep a Super Duty long term and want to just buy once, cry once, it's definitely, you know, I would recommend the Icon stuff. It's super, super solid setup. So this thing came together awesome. We really like how it turned out. So if you guys are looking to do something like this, hit us up. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.